Good afternoon, everyone. We welcome you to our Power of Diversity lecture series, and we're really excited to have each of you here. This afternoon, we will be featuring Dr. Mark Joseph. As some of you may know, and we have some guests present with us as well, but the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusive Engagement sponsors the Power of Diversity lecture series. Our purpose of the series is to inspire campus dialogue, community engagement, and civic education and learning about the national narrative on diversity and inclusion. We know that matters of diversity and inclusion are quite prominent in the national narrative these days, and they're certainly not getting the positive narrative that we're able to see here today and what we do on our campus. So, one way this mission comes alive is through certainly the research, scholarship, and service of our own esteemed faculty. And so we're really excited today to hear from Mark Joseph, who serves as the Leona Beavis Marguerite Hanem Professor in Community Development, the founding director of the National Initiative on Mixed Income Communities, and faculty associate for the Center on Poverty and Community Development, all in the Jack Joseph Morton Mandel School of Applied Sciences here at Case Western Reserve University. His research focus is mixed income development as a strategy for promoting urban equity and inclusion. He is the co-author of the award-winning book, Integrating the Inner City, The Promise and Perils of Mixed Income Public Housing Transformation, and co-editor of What Works to Promote Inclusive, Equitable, Mixed Income Communities. He's the founding director of the National Institute on Mixed Income Communities, which conducts research and consulting projects in cities across the U.S. and Canada. Dr. Joseph serves on the governance board of the Urban Affairs Association. He also serves as the editorial advisory boards of the journal Cityscape, Housing Policy Debate, Journal of Community Practice, and Journal of Race and Ethnicity in the City. He received his undergraduate degree from Harvard University and his master's and PhD from the University of Chicago, and was a postdoctoral scholar at the University of Chicago and a Harlech Scholar at Oxford University. And he's my neighbor. So today, Mark is convening an illustrious panel of community experts to discuss what's going on in mixed income communities here in Cleveland and why it's so important to our economic development. Now, I won't stay here long. I'm going to turn things over to allow Mark to give you some insights and some of his wisdom, and then introduce the panel, and then he will facilitate the panel, and I will defer to you to conduct any questions that we might have from the audience as well at the conclusion of the panel. So at this time, let's welcome Dr. Mark Joseph.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Solomon, for that warm introduction, neighbor. And great to be back at a Power of Diversity series. And I'm particularly excited because many of you in the room, and it's great to see some old friends and colleagues. You've heard me speak before. So I thought we'll be much more interested in to bring some of my friends, some new, some old, to speak with you on a topic that is rolling out as we speak and as you will hear. This is something that is very real, very live, and I'm so grateful to the panelists for being willing to join me. Number one, to take time out of the middle of their day to be here with us, but also because this is unfolding. This is not something we're going to talk about that's done, polished, wrapped up in a bow. This is something that is literally rolling out and will be rolling out in the days and weeks and months ahead. So our panelists are taking a little bit of a risk here in stepping out and being willing to talk about this as it's live. But I think that's going to be most interesting to you all, and that's what we really want to hear about. So grateful to the panelists. We have with us, and you'll hear a little bit more from them in a moment, Mr. Radmel Sheffy, who is one of the very first residents of that building, Woodhill Station West, which if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out on the corner of Buckeye and Woodhill Roads. So thank you, Mr. Sheffy, a legacy Woodhill Morris Black resident, one of the first to move into the building, and he'll tell you a little bit about his perspective and experience. We also have Miss Yvette Hunt, who is a neighbor of the building, and she lives on the other side. If you could hop over the building, you would see her home, and you almost can see her roof of her house. So imagine being a neighbor on that block, and one day you hear that not only is a building going to be built right literally next to you, but it is a massive 120-unit building. So this was about two and a half years ago. Ms. Hunt heard this, and so she has been going through an experience which she will share with you all about both the excitement of something new and possibly transformative happening in the neighborhood, but if you can just begin to try to imagine, and you can't, she will share with you everything she's had to endure along with her neighbors of this building going up next to her home, and it's still playing out. And there's going to be another building right next to it. So I'm so grateful to Yvette, number one, for her collaboration, but for being willing to be here. And you're going to hear about all the ways she's stepping up in leadership. This is not happening to her. This is happening with her, and you'll hear much more about that. Last but certainly not least is my colleague and friend, Carla Trammell, who is with the Community Builders. And so she is a staff member, a professional involved in this mix, and her role is Director of Community Life at the Community Builders, newly promoted as of 3 months or so ago into that role, very well deserved. And so her task is to think about the people component of this neighborhood transformation and to provide support specifically for the residents of Woodhill Homes. So very, very grateful to the panel for being here, and we'll get them up here in a moment. Also, I just want to thank again Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. You've met Dr. Robert Solomon already. Let me give a shout out to Dr. Heather Burton back there. Many of you might know. And then I don't know if Janae's not, she's out today, and then Tiara, but they are both behind the scenes and helping set this up. So please pass along our thanks to them for everything they did. Thank you to you all for being here in the middle of your Friday afternoon. Again, good to see some friendly faces who've got my back here as we are presenting and digging into this topic. I want to give a special welcome to friends and partners from the Woodhill Homes transformation. We have several people in the room who are working on this project. Certainly first and foremost, Miss Marilyn Burns, who's probably known to many of you already. So Marilyn Burns is a longtime community leader, not just in Woodhill, across the city. That's why many of you probably know about her, but certainly Woodhill Homes leader. She has been front and center of our work at Woodhill since before we started this particular project for years. She's kind of seen us all show up to be a part of this, and she's like, glad you guys are finally here. I've been at it a long time. Ms. Marilyn has served as the co-chair of our steering committee. She also co-chairs our safety working group, and she's been involved in many other components and other things around the community for being here. And then as far as Case Western, she's been a leader. She served on our institutional review board for many years. And then most recently, she was named one of the recipients of a Flora Award. So if you all know the Flora Awards, yes, from the Flora Stone Mather Center for Women, and so she was one of the proud recipients. So I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for taking time to be here. And sitting next to her is Diane Pride Mays, who some of you may know. She works with our council president, Blaine Griffin, and does an incredible job as a right arm for him and represents him at our steering committee meetings and has been a great partner for us. So Diane, thank you for being here as well. And then I think we have members of our team. You'll hear a little bit more about the National Initiative on Mixed Income Communities. And so we've got Christina Vukovic, and we have Mara McCrickard, and we have Dustin, and was there someone? And Colette. Where's Colette? And then Colette in the back from our team. So thank you all for being here and for the work that you do on this. All right, so game plan is I'm going to set a little bit of context for what we're going to hear about. talk a little bit about mixed income in general. It's some of what some of you have heard me talk about. Then talk specifically about this particular project and kind of what is it, what's happening. It's a very important project here in our city and in Northeast Ohio. So if you haven't heard about the Woodhill Buckeye Mixed Income Transformation, I'm glad you'll be learning about it today. And then want to talk about that building and give you a sense of kind of what it's about, what it means, and what the kind of hopes are. Then I'll invite the panel, and those are who you really came to hear from today, and just ask them to share some of their personal experiences and aspirations and challenges. And I've told them we can keep it real, not make this sound like it is easy sailing, because it is not. I'll give that punchline away right up front. This is incredibly difficult work. And there's a lot of question marks about where this is going. And I think one place we can end with this is you all could have a role in supporting. There are so many things that this community will need, both at the building and beyond, as we are on this mixed income transformation venture. I'm certain that there are ways that each and every one of you could help network us to resources, to organizations, or come on out and be involved. We've had a lot of volunteer opportunities. So hopefully at the end of this, we'll have more people involved in our partnership as we move ahead. All right, so then without further ado, there's kind of a few bigger issues that really drive this work. We're going to be talking about a single building, but the building sits at some big questions, not just for Woodhill or Buckeye neighborhood or Cleveland, but really for America. In some ways larger than that for our society. One is this notion of the divide between the haves and have-nots. And if you haven't noticed, it's getting wider, not smaller, in so many ways. And so mixed income is one policy effort to bridge that divide, to close that, narrow that gap. Secondly, we are becoming a more diverse nation, as I'm sure you are all aware. As we are becoming more diverse, we're also becoming more divided. And so we've got this issue of us versus them, which feels to me, I don't know about you all, worse than ever in certainly my lifetime. The level of us versus them. So here we are creating a building and trying to create a neighborhood that intentionally has a mix of folks from different backgrounds. So we have an intentional opportunity to do something different, to do something that's not natural in our society, but because it's not natural, that makes it more hard. Finally, there's this question of who benefits, right? One of the positive things that we can say about our cities and urban America over the last 20 years now is our cities are coming back. You've got these turnaround cities. People want to live in the city. They want to be in the city. Being out in the suburbs is kind of played out, right? So you want to be in the city. Now the question becomes, who gets to be in the city? Who gets to stay in the city? Finally, our cities are turning around. Our neighborhoods are turning around. For those of you who may have tried to look on the near west side, get an apartment in Tremont or Ohio City or Detroit Shoreway, it's kind of hard to do that these days, right? And the residents of the Buckeye neighborhood are saying, are we next? Are we the next community that when it finally starts to turn around, we don't get to be a part of it? The community turns around for somebody else. The beautiful thing about mixed income transformation is it says we are locking in affordable housing into this community. This building has locked in affordable housing, as you will hear. So that's great, but then what are you doing to make sure that those folks who are in that housing feel a sense of belonging and welcome in the community as it changes, right? So we'll get into some of those issues. So those are the kind of big picture issues. A little bit about our center. If you haven't heard about the National Initiative on Mixed Income Communities, I encourage you to hop on our website, check us out. So these are some of the roles that we play. I won't spend a lot of time. This is our team at a recent retreat last fall. Some of them you just met. If you are interested in learning more, we have a pretty recent volume of essays on mixed income communities. This is available on our website, so you can get each of the essays there. And if you are a podcast person and you've not discovered our podcast, we have a podcast that we're very proud of called Bending the Arc, and there are 20 episodes there and counting. We just recorded one last week, episode 21 coming. Very quickly, folks might ask kind of, what is mixed income success, right? What are we aiming for here? And this is something we'll get into with the panelists. I'm really curious to what they see as success for this building. And I've already heard from Rodnell talk about it. So I know he's got a very strong vision of what he hopes will happen in this building. But from our research over now the last 20 years, part of mixed income success is the housing. And that part is hard enough. Any of you all who are familiar with the process of making a 120 unit building come to life, not at all easy. So that's hard enough. And then you have to get it leased up and occupied. But it's not just about the housing, it's also about the neighborhood. So this initiative is called the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative because it really is both about housing transformation and neighborhood transformation. But then what you really want to do is avoid displacement. We talked about that. Who gets to be in this community as it turns around? And so the part of success is, did you avoid displacement? Did the original long-term residents remain, and do they still have a voice? Do they still feel like they belong? And in communities across the country, we're seeing that not happening. And so our goal is, how do we make that happen here in Buckeye? You also want to attract new residents and retain them. And then you want to promote not just housing, but a community. So this notion of inclusive social dynamics. I talked about the us versus them. It can be a very natural human instinct to connect with who you know, who's like you. So we're trying to create something that is different, again, than the norm. And then finally, it's housing not so that folks will remain low income and challenged day to day, but really so there's economic mobility. And hopefully, Rodnell, you're going to talk to us a little bit about your entrepreneurial dreams. I know you have some aspirations you were telling me about. So how is housing a platform for economic mobility? All right, so then a quick glimpse of how are we doing? And again, this is based on a couple decades now of research around the country. And we would say, in terms of creating mixed income housing neighborhood revitalization, put those in the green. We're doing quite well. It might take longer than we like, cost more than we like, be more arduous, but we can build the building. And when we do, you see the neighborhoods revitalize. We're also doing kind of well at attracting folks. Folks will move into these new mixed income buildings. And they'll move into buildings in communities that once they would have thought of as no-go zones. But they see the neighborhood turning around, they see the beautiful building, and they want to be a part of it. However, the reason that's yellow is they don't stay. We see high turnover. So people will move into a building and then turn over. It's a natural thing in many rental buildings, of course, but makes it really hard to build a community when you've got folks churning in and out. Finally, there are the three areas in the red that I like to say, these are the ones that keep us up at night at the National Initiative on Mixed Income Communities. We're seeing too much displacement around the country, too low rates of return. So the average rate in one of our studies was 18%. Return of the original residents. So this is something that we in the Woodhill Buckeye Transformation have said is not acceptable. To go through all this time and all this investment and only have 18% of folks return is not acceptable. And so what can we do to make sure we get as close to a 50-50 level or higher of people getting to return? We're also seeing the us versus them dynamics play out again in mixed income communities across the country. And so folks might be living in proximity, but they're not necessarily building strong neighboring. So that's a challenge. And then finally, we're seeing folks moving into mixed income buildings and communities, but still staying in a very tenuous economic circumstances. And so what can we do to truly make this mixed income housing a platform for economic mobility? All right, so that brings us to what we're doing up here in Cleveland. And if you aren't familiar with this, I really encourage you to check it out, learn more about it. But very briefly, we won 3 years ago, a federal Choice Neighborhood Initiative grant. Initially, it was $35 million, and then there was an additional supplement of $10 million. So $45 million over 7 years. That ultimately is going to catalyze almost a $500 million investment, all told, in the infrastructure, the housing, the services, all of the work that's going to happen over 6 phases. There were 469 occupied units at Woodhill Homes Estate when we started. Those are going to be ultimately replaced with about 800 plus units. 300 and some will be on site, and then others will be off-site and in the community. There were 450 households currently who have been relocated or are in the process of being relocated, all with the right to return. So this goes back to my point about avoiding displacement. And what's very important, and that's part of the work that Carla is hands-on with her team, making sure residents understand this new housing is being built for you. You have the priority right of return to that housing. But that does no good as 3-4 years later, we don't know how to contact you. You've lost touch with us. And so you're not able to come back when we finally have built the housing. The core strategy focus from the Choice Neighborhood Initiative is threefold: housing, people, and neighborhood. So those are the three strategic areas. So it really is a comprehensive approach. It's very far from simply build the housing and hope the other stuff happens. There's a whole range of work going on. Just to place us geographically, if you look on the left, you can see University Circle. So Case Western, where we're sitting right now, is right around where that label is. Downtown is 4 miles to the west. And then you see the white boundaries of the Choice target neighborhood. If you jump on over here, you see those boundaries replicated. Where you see A is the Woodhill Homes Estates. So that's the kind of core focus. Those homes will be demolished, rebuilt as mixed income housing. And where you see areas 1, 2, and 3 are what we've called our neighborhood innovation areas. And so there are 3 micro geographies that allow us to target a focus on block to block, door by door, engaging residents. And Miss Yvette Hunt, who you'll be hearing from in a second, lives in area number 1, which is the Wamalink to Kennedy neighborhood innovation area. And she is one of our proud street captains of that area, recruited a couple years ago. When I first met her, and I met her by knocking on her door, she'll tell you, and we talked, and then I discovered she actually was a graduate of Case Western. I didn't know that when I went up to her door. And she said to me in that very first conversation, when I said, "Miss Hunt, what do you want? What can we do? What do you want?" And she said, do you remember what you said? What did you say? She said, "I want to see the table." And what happened last week? She led the table a week ago. So it was only a matter of time. So you'll hear more about that. But we are looking to recruit street captains in all those areas so that ultimately they will be the ones who determine how this all plays out with our support. So what's the current status? We are halfway through year 3. And as I mentioned, it's 7 years. But the latest I heard is that the housing phases may go through 2031. So this is a long-term initiative, which is one of the issues. How do you stay the course? This is Carla's area of work, but the relocation preferences, so residents get a choice. Would they like to relocate with a housing choice voucher? Some of you may know it as Section 8 housing, where they can take a voucher and move into the private market. Or would they like to transfer it to another public housing development and then return to the new housing? So these, as Carla will tell us, these are shifting. Residents are changing their minds. They're saying one thing and then, which is perfectly their right. But we're getting about 60% saying they would like a voucher, about 40% saying I want to move to another development and come back to one of the new housing. But regardless of what they tell us now, they return their right to return until the last unit is filled. So if it takes us through 2031, if there's someone who took a voucher and says, you know what, I would like to come back, they have that right to that unit. Now, once again, they have to know how to reach us and we have to know how to reach them. And given how often people change phones and might be moving, and some folks are moving out of state, most of them so far, luckily, are staying relatively close. But over a 7-year period, so that's one of our tasks, is can we make sure that we stay connected to them to keep that real. About 350 households of the 450 are off-site. These numbers might have been updated even more recently. We have about 100 still on the site. And if you've driven by on Woodland Road, you've seen that it's boarded up. So the upper portion is boarded up, and demolition will begin sometime in the next couple months. Here's what we're going to talk about today. There's so many pieces of this initiative we could talk about, but we decided let's talk about the most exciting part, which is this new building, but also maybe the most challenging part right now, which is the new building, right? So we have about almost 30 moves-ins, and Carla can give us the up-to-date. information. And again, Mr. Sheffy is one of our first proud move-ins to the building. And then we'll have the second building opening on Woodland this summer. So we'll have 2 buildings with another 77 units. I'll just go really quickly because I want to get our panel up here. This was just to give you a sense of this kind of governance structure that we've built out to help the community have oversight, input, and information about what's going on. So we have a community-based steering committee, and Ms. Marilyn has been one of our founding co-chairs of that group, along with myself and Pastor Ernest Fields. We have 5 working groups. The people working group, Carla co-leads along with me, and then there's housing neighborhood safety working group I mentioned earlier. Ms. Marilyn co-leads that with some colleagues, and then we have an empowerment fund. On the engagement side, we have a number of different ways of engaging residents. Carla's colleague, Erica Jarvis, is building out a tenants network. So I mentioned these 450 households. They are now spread throughout the city. And so this challenge of how do we stay in touch with them and how do we continue supporting them over this period? So we're building out a network to have them connected. We're going to have some network builders who will be connecting them. We have neighborhood ambassadors through, some of you may know about Burton Bell Carr, the local community development corporation. So they have neighborhood ambassadors. And then our newest role in the new buildings are going to be floor stewards and building stewards. And so we're actually hoping, Radnell is already an unofficial floor steward, but we are hoping, 4th floor, there you go, he's calling his floor. So we'll have 4 floor stewards whose role is engagement and leadership within the building. And then I mentioned these 3 areas and the street captains, and as I mentioned, Yvette is one of our street captains. All of this is guided by a resident-centered creed that we developed at the very beginning out of our steering committee. So important. And we think it's one of the missing puzzle pieces in other initiatives around the country. They don't state and hold themselves to centering residents. And so we developed this creed. I see Ms. Marilyn nodding and smiling back there. It's so important. But it's also a challenge to remain true to it and to live into it. So we read it to ourselves at the beginning of meetings. I appreciate that Carla's been adding it to the start of her meetings so that we can remind ourselves about centering residents. We also developed a relocation success statement. What would be success at the end of the day for relocation? Relocation success will be when redevelopment is complete, all legacy residents will be thriving in their new locations. And many residents, like Rudnell, will have chosen to return to the new replacement housing at or near Woodhill, as is their right. Those residents who return will take pride and feel a sense of ownership and belonging in their beautiful new mixed income community. So that's our goal. Far easier said than done. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, but as you'll hear, we're on our way. Finally, these are some photos, very recent. This is one of my classes. I teach planning and implementing social change in the spring. So my students were there with residents. Rodnell was there at this activity, and we were doing some arts and crafts and made some welcome cards for the residents. And then with that, I will put up our success statement, which we have developed, and that was done by one of our, we had come up with it, and then our students made posters of it. And I will invite our panel members to join me up front. So come on up, guys. Enough of me talking. Thank you. Carla, why don't we have you in the middle? Rodnell, why don't you have you at the end? And Yvette, why don't you have you here? All right. Thank you all. Let's give them another big hand. They're a little nervous, so let's give them a big hand. There we go. You can go ahead and turn them on if you like. All right, so let's start by having you hear from each of our lovely panelists a little bit about them and kind of their pathway to being involved with Woodhill Station West. And so we'll start with Yvette. What we'll do is we'll go with the longest involved in that part of the community. So Yvette will tell you how long she's been living over there, and then Carla has been involved with the community builders, and then of course Rodnell is the newest member of the community, having just moved in. So Yvette, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay? I'm so used to the lapel mics. This is new to hold up the actual microphone. Again, my name is Yvette Hunt. Let me start off by thanking you for inviting me to this panel discussion. And it's nice to be back on the campus of Case Western Reserve University because I received my social work degree from the Mendel School way back in 1992, so I'm going to date myself. I'm a long-term resident of Ward 4, and I do reside on Womalink with my parents who are still with me. I'm in my family home. It's a two-family house. And my journey started, well, I'll start with how my journey started. I say my birth of community started September 12th, 2022. I remember that date very well because I spoke at the public comment section at the Cleveland City Hall. I think they just instituted the public commentary during their time. And at that time, I wanted to voice my concerns. At that time, construction was going on, so I did voice in 3 minutes my concerns with the construction, with the sights, sounds, and smells, and the vibrations of construction, because Wood Hill Station West is literally in my backyard. So moving forward, I think like a week or two later, I met Mark. He came knocking at my door. It was on a Saturday. I remember that morning very well. I was feeling a little bit sick because that day before I had got the COVID shot. And my dad said, somebody from Case wants to see you. And I'm like, tell them to come back. I don't feel like going. The something said, no, Yvette, go downstairs. So I went downstairs, hurried up, got myself together, went downstairs, and was talking to Mark for a few minutes on the front porch there. And at that time, that's the time when I asked Mark, or really not ask him, I said I wanted a seat at the table. So he kind of like, okay. So that as months and months and months have gone by, and then later on I became a street captain. And at first I didn't know what street captain, Mark, me, a street captain. But as time has gone by, I realized the street captain's role has been the eyes and ears of the neighborhood. We do report issues and concerns to appropriate individuals, and as of late, there has been many, many things. So I'm enjoying this role, which has been troublesome and exciting at the same time, and I try to support other street captains as well as my neighbors. And as we go on, I want to see the involvement of more street captains on the streets beyond Womalink. So that's a goal I hope that will be accomplished. I think I covered all the aspects of my introduction. Okay.
You did. That
Thank
was
you.
perfect. Thank you, Yvette. Carla.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carla Trammell, and I am, as Mark stated, the Director of Community Life for Cleveland. I got into this role by happenstance. I wasn't looking for this role, but I had a close friend of mine who saw the job posting and said, I feel like this is for you. And I applied and I got the job and then recently got promoted. But my career path has always been in social work. Social service, working with families is my passion, is my purpose. It is what gets me up. It is what energizes me. It is what drains me. But it's what I am supposed to do, and I love it. And I love working with, families. I love working with children, and this is just a different aspect of social work in the housing field. And I'm learning a lot, and it's been a great opportunity. So that's how I got here.
Thank you, Carla. Could you just describe your team a little bit more and kind of where your group fits in the community builders overall?
Sure. So the Community Builders has 3 departments. They have development, which deals with like primarily the brick and mortar, the buildings. We have property management, which of course does the management of the properties once they get online. And then we have community life, which is my department, and we are kind of like the social service lens of the Community Builders. So I have a team of 5 service coordinators. Some people call them case managers, and they deal directly with the residents, supporting them with their needs, resources, doing those just check-ins. How are things going? We work very closely with property management as the new building is opening to say, okay, this resident is moving in, do a soft handoff to community life. Let's talk about what you need to help support you in this new journey, your new building, your new housing. What can we do? What do your children need? What programming would you like? What supports can we provide that will make this a great opportunity and a great situation for you? We also have a community engagement manager who does, community engagement, all the fun stuff, the resident info sessions, making sure residents are informed and know what's going on, Facebook pages, just trying to find any avenue to engage residents because as Mark said, a lot of our residents are relocated off-site and trying to keep them engaged and keep them in the know of what's going on with the project is a huge task, so she has that task. And then as part of the HUD grant, we have certain outcomes and metrics that we have to meet. So we have outcomes in education, health, and then economic stability. So our task is also to work with the residents so that we can meet those outcomes as part of the HUD grant.
Thank you. And Carla's team also just moved into the building on Wednesday.
Apartment 118.
So the fact that she's here and her team is dealing with getting set up in a new building, they also have moving challenges. So thank you for being here. Mr. Rodnell Sheffy, tell us your story.
Okay, my name is Rodnell Shepard. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I moved to Cleveland in July of 2000. I moved to Woodhill Homes December the 14th, 2014. I've been here 10 years. I've cried with them. I've laughed with them. I've worked with them. So I know their heartbeats. It's a community that everyone that has moved into the building, I'm talking grown-ups and children, are smiling. Everyone's happy moving into that building. Our job is to keep them happy. We have a lot of challenges. We're coming from Morris Black, which is a project, which was one of the worst projects in Cleveland. So the challenges of Morris Black is coming to Woodhill West. It's unavoidable. But we're already on it. We got some grown folks like me who are already looking at things and making sure it don't get out of hand. Just like earlier this week, we had someone sleeping in the hallway drunk. I wound up taking the man all the way to Brook Park to his home so the kids, when they get up and go to school in the morning, did not see that. That's what they used to seeing up in Morris Black. We're not having that down here. It's a beautiful community. Everybody's loving surrounding. There's not one bad apartment in it. Every apartment in that building is bad. Every single one. So everyone who's moving in is happy. We have to keep you there. We can't let it get out of hand. We have to, it's safety first, and it's the children and women first that we have to protect. You got a lot of guys whose boyfriends want to come and start mess. We on that. We got baby daddies, baby mamas want to start mess. We're on that. We're gonna keep it safe. We're gonna keep it to the point where everyone's living together as one. We have a chance to show the world something different. We don't want to blow this opportunity. And we don't want to bring our same habits that we had up there in Morris Black down here, down to Woodhill West. It's a whole different ball game now. Everybody got to get on board. Everybody got to elevate themselves. And then we'll be a successful community. I promise you.
Wow. We could end right there. Should we just go home, everybody? Thank you, Rodnell. That's beautiful. And I didn't know what happened earlier this week. And
Yeah, that was yesterday, matter of fact.
I really appreciate you being part of the team
Yeah.
who needs to handle things like that to set the new tone. All right. Well, we're going to come back to some of the challenges, but let's start on the positive. What would you say is most exciting and hopeful when you have your best feeling days about what this building can be? What's most exciting for you all? Maybe Yvette, I'll start with you again.
Okay. For me, exciting, since I've seen the change in that land before the building was there, for me, it's just exciting to see that. It is exciting to see the construction of the building, because from day one to see the construction crews out there every morning, afternoon, and evening. It was just an awesome thing to see, even though there's some challenges, but staying on the positive. It was just awesome to just see them working, constructing this building, and it changed the landscape of that corner, Buckeye and Woodhill, I must say. So that is has been exciting, and it's just. What was your second part of the question?
Yeah, hopeful.
Hopeful.
And one of the things that is concerns that you and your neighbors have expressed is, well, that's nice. You're building a new building for the folks from Morris Black, Woodhill. What about us? And so what's your hope in terms of for you?
I'm hopeful. I have at least 120 plus more neighbors now in my back pocket. So if there's trouble, I can go to Woodhill Station West. And you got my backside, right? Okay.
Most definitely. We work with security.
Okay, good to hear. So that was excited to hear that. So that lets me know, because it's not too many houses on Womaling. That's the street I reside on. I think it's like 6 houses. So I was like, wow, I have 120 new neighbors now. So that kind of makes up for that little void. I know there's a long way to go, so I'm looking forward to working with TCB and the residents and trying to reach out and develop a community as neighbors. And that's something I'm looking forward to. That's going to be new territory for me, and I'm sure new territory for TCB and yourself. But I'm here with you, and I welcome you officially. I'm going to welcome them officially from me as one of the street captains, okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Beautiful. You saw it here first, folks. Carla, what's most exciting and hopeful?
For me, I think it's just the possibilities are endless. There's so many things that we can do. There's so many ways that we can approach this. There's no one way that we can support the residents or make this a successful project. Coming together with different partners and different stakeholders and hearing their thoughts and opinions and takes on things, it really challenges me in the way I think and the way I look at things. And my hope is from the beginning is always, I mean, I know not all residents are going to come back, but as many residents come back as possible. I would love to see everyone get the opportunity to take advantage of such a great opportunity. And we are working very hard to make that happen.
Thank you, Carla. Mr. Sheffy, how about for you?
Well, it's very exciting to see people moving in, because everyone has moved into that building, moved in with a smile on their face. I'm talking about the grown-ups to the children. It's a beautiful feeling to see that. I'm hoping that everybody elevates their learning and the community, because you can't come with the same attitude that the government's going to take care of you. Now we can take care of ourselves. Because being so dependent on the government and go out here, get our own jobs or create jobs and get people to work instead of sitting around with nothing to do. It's a lot to do, even if you can volunteer your time. There's a lot of things that can enhance the community. And we have to put it in the people's brains that this is not the same atmosphere as Morris Black. We're trying to be a better community. We're trying to set an example for the world now. Let's do this. Let's do it together.
Wonderful. Thank you. So much possibility and excitement. One of the things we find as a center is that we have the luxury of kind of keeping our eye on the bigger picture. And most of the folks, and certainly the 3 folks on the panel here, have the everyday to worry about. And so this excitement can quickly get lost a little bit in the minutia and the challenges in the day-to-day. And one of our roles is to say, hey, everyone, let's remember where we're headed. Let's remember what this can be. So I have a question for you all about kind of a vision for success. So if you just kind of close your eyes and think about, well, let's say 10 years from now. And when we are successful, Woodhill Station West, Wamalink Avenue, Steinway Avenue, Cumberland, Yakel, Kennedy Avenue, Buckeye Road, what would you paint as a vision for success? What would you see kind of 10 years down the road? And whoever's ready with their vision can jump in.
I see children playing, laughing, grown-ups making sure they don't run out in the streets and making sure they get along with each other. I see community where everyone's who's of working age is out there working, because nothing solves more of life's problems than a steady income. Go out there, find work, get jobs, raise your family. Raise your family, obey the laws of your land. Raise your family, and you'll live a good life. You must obey the law.
Thank you so much.
I think for me, when I think about it, and this might even be shorter term than 10 years, but the residents feeling like they deserve this. Because what I would compare it to an unhealthy relationship. You get into an unhealthy relationship and you feel like almost subconsciously, this is what I deserve. And then you get into maybe a healthier relationship and you almost self-sabotage because you don't feel like you deserve this. And we see that with some of the residents coming, almost a self-sabotage, because for me, if I think about it, it's internal trauma, very ingrained habits, behaviors from an unhealthy situation or relationship. And they're coming to a new situation where they have to unlearn those things, and that's very difficult. So maybe in 10 years that can happen, and they feel like this is for me. I do deserve this. I do deserve to have safe, healthy, beautiful, brand new
everything.
housing. So that would be my vision for success: is residents deeply feel that this is something that they deserve.
My vision right now, or not right now, but in the shorter term, maybe less than 10 years, maybe 5 years or less, I want everybody, including my new neighbors in Wood Hill Station West, to be informed, engaged, and empowered. And I want my my neighbors on my street and beyond, and if we can be that together, that would be a beautiful thing. And also, when I go out and outside of my community, if I tell them where I live at, I'm in Buckeye Woodland, I'm next to Wood Hill Station West, I want positive comments instead of saying, ooh, you're over there, you're next to people who used to live in Wood Hill Estates. I want them to say, oh yeah, that's you got it going on. I want to reach that level where there's a positive reaction. So I won't be like, I don't have to say I have to defend. I will defend where I live at, because I remember, I need to go back a little bit. When I started at CASE in 92, we had some type of orientation. Not 92, but before the program started, we had an orientation. And they were just saying how you have to be careful because you know where you are and you have to hold on to your purse. And at that time, I was too scared to say, well, I live less than 10 minutes away. Now, when I say I want to say where I live at, I'm going to be vocal and say, yes, that's where I live at. What about it? Okay? That's where I'm at.
That's funny, because when people ask me where I used to live, I never said Morris Black. I said Shaker.
We're not going to do that no more, right?
No, I ain't got to do it no more.
That's right.
That's funny, but so real, right? And that's part of it, is the
Real.
perception and changing the perception. And then it's like, if we can change the perception at this one corner and block and building, then we keep changing the perception. Ultimately, it's a different perception of Buckeye. And then the southeast side of the city, right? It goes from there. So this is part of a mixed income transformation. We haven't really talked about mixed income yet. And I'm curious, that there was a time when I hadn't heard of mixed income. I didn't know what it was. And I've spent my career trying to figure out, what is it? What can it be? And I'm curious what you all are coming to learn about mixed income. What does it mean to you? What's your understanding of, at its best, what can that be? How is it a part of this?
Well, I think of mixed income, I look at people driving Mercedes-Benz and people with bus passes.
Okay.
So you got to make the people with the bus passes feel as good as the people with the Mercedes. That's going to be difficult.
And is that a good thing to have that mix? Do you see that as a good thing?
It's a good thing, because the people that's lower can learn from the people that's higher. If the people that's higher is willing to accept the people that's lower than them. You can't have people running around acting like they're kings and gods and other people like they peasants. That can't happen because the peasants will revolt.
Right.
It's happened before. How about you, Carla? What does mixed income mean to you? What's that all about?
What it means to me? That's a difficult question. What it means to me, I think I'll answer it. I think it's a concept that a lot of people have a hard time getting on board with. A lot of people don't believe it can be successful. And this is a great opportunity for us to prove them wrong. But I think it allows an opportunity for us to build a community where it's not the us versus them, it's the we.
Yeah.
It's the collective. We are all people, humans. And there shouldn't be this gap between, okay, I have this income, so now I deserve this, and you have this income, so you deserve that. It should be, we deserve this. Yeah.
For me, starting out even saying mixed income already seems that there's a difference between people. And I think if we don't kind of focus on mixed income and realize we're all human beings, we all need food, clothing, shelter, and community. And of course, people are going to have different things in life to acquire different things, but we need to stay at the core of this humanity. And that's what I'm about. I think I've shared with you a long time ago. Whatever I'm going to do, I want to keep the humanity in it. Of course, this person may have a little bit more than me, but you can't take it with you, okay? You cannot take it with you. So if we could just stay together, I want somebody, okay, if they may have more money or less money, if I'm in danger, I want both of y'all to come help me, okay? And I'm going to gravitate. If the one that want more money doesn't help me, well, then I'm going to go to the one that don't help me, okay? That's where I'm about now.
Thank you. All right, so maybe at this point we have folks in our audience thinking, maybe this is possible. Maybe we're onto something here. Maybe we can do it, and maybe we can. But we've got some serious challenges. So let's go there. What are some of the challenges you'd like to share with our friends here that we're dealing with?
Okay, here goes some of the challenges. Now you remember, Moore is black. It's a drug-infested area. Don't think they're leaving their drug problems up in Morris Black. Do not think that. What you have to have, you're going to have a place where they can turn to get off of drugs. You're going to have that in the building because they're going to need it.
And let me jump on that because absolutely right. We're now in a situation new for our state where smoking weed is legal. So how does that complicate? And what I learned recently, I didn't know this, but Woodhill Station West, in fact, all of the Community Builders buildings are non-smoking buildings. So the law of the state is that you can smoke weed. The law of the building, and I love what you said a moment ago, Rodnell, obey the law. But now we got two different laws. A state law that says you can smoke weed, a building law that says you can't smoke anything.
Mm-hmm. And you better not.
Or we know who's knocking on your fourth floor apartment.
The manager.
But does that complicate it that folks can smoke, that weed is now acceptable? Does that make what you just said harder as far as managing drugs and substance abuse issues?
No, it makes it easier because they ain't got to sneak around. And you treat weed just like cigarettes. When people go out to smoke a cigarette, they'll go out and smoke a blunt too. But majority of them do it in their car. But I'm starting to see a lot of cigarette butts around the property. So you got to put ashtrays out there or something, or stop them from smoking in the front. Something has to have because it's getting bad already. But you got to, people are going to bring their alcohol, all their problems with them. Their domestic abuse and all that's coming. You got to prepare for it. It's coming.
Eva?
That's going to be, for me, being a long-term resident, because I can look out my back bedroom window and they have seats in the back, and I see them come out and smoke their cigarettes and maybe whatever else probably too. So I see a different perspective on things just, and that changes my living in that home. Since that building is there, I may see some things and kind of have to know, how do I, as a neighbor, how do I handle that? So we may have to help each other out here.
Right, right. I'll
Okay.
tell you right now,
Okay.
if anything going foul in that building, we on it. I'm on it.
Okay.
If security with security miss, I don't.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Carla, this issue that Ronell put on the table, there's realities that families have been dealing with for generations and living in a situation where, frankly, it's on us. We have isolated them. We haven't provided the services. We have put them in an environment where you're looking for some form of escape from a reality that you can't have. Now we're creating this beautiful new building, but it doesn't magically change generations and years and months of coping and whatever else you're bringing. Unfortunately, Carla, this lands at your team's doorstep. You have the community life team. You're charged with engaging residents, as you said. So help us understand some of the challenges of making that happen, and then maybe what has been hopeful. Like, where have you made some traction that we can maybe build on?
I think one of the challenges is there's so many ways that we can support residents, and there's no cookie cutter way to support everybody. So each resident is, unique in their own way. So the services or programming that I might have that might work for one resident or one family is not going to work for this family. So we have to take a myriad of approaches. I spoke with a colleague out in Boston, and she was saying one of the things they do as a resident of the building, you have to have annual inspections and just to make sure the unit is clean and there's no fire hazards and things of that nature. And she said they give notices to the residents who pass the inspection and say, "Thank you for keeping your unit clean." And in my head, I said, "Oh, that's nice," but then I thought, I think I would get offended if somebody told me, "Thank you for keeping my house clean," because why would I not? So we had a conversation about, there's no cookie cutter way. Somebody might take that as, "Oh, that's nice," and somebody might feel like it's condescending. So the chat.
I'm more black. More black. Keep that program going. Keep it going.
Thank you, Mr. Sheffy. So there's no cookie cutter way. So it's a lot of things that we have to utilize, a lot of supports, a lot of resources, partners, programming that we're going to have to bring into the building to help the residents. So what we're doing is we create a calendar for the month. Our first calendar will be April, and it'll list out the programming that we'll have on site for the month of April. So we have Ohio Means Jobs coming. We have Beachbrook coming. They're coming once a week. We have Central State Extension coming. That's going to do food programming. We have after school programming for the children. There's so many supports that we have.
Chair yoga?
I'm sorry.
Chair yoga?
We're going to have chair yoga for the seniors. Miss Marilyn, come on. You talked about yoga. I remember. We're going to have regular yoga. I mean, we're just throwing everything at the wall, and whatever sticks, it'll stick, and whatever doesn't, we'll have to adjust. But our approach is, let's try everything. Let's bring everything to the table and, bring it to the residents. If they engage, wonderful. If they don't, we need to sit back at the table and see why it didn't work and actually have conversations with the residents. What do you want? What would work for you? What supports do you think would work for the building? And hopefully, it will be successful.
Thank you, Carla. Any other challenges you all just want to lift up to help folks understand what you have to deal with?
Well, we have to always think of the challenge of safety because it's a new building. And the criminals got their ass set on it. So we have to think of safety first. That has to be the number one priority is safety. We got way to enter the building. We got two ways to enter the building. You can enter the building through the front or the back. Then you got side doors too. That people could use their keys and get in. The people that live far from the elevators. So you got them entrances too, that you got to keep an eye on. People sneaking in, sneaking out, and all the buildings. We must have a system of who we letting in and out of this building. We must be on that because if I don't already seen people come out from my flow that I said there was little scratchy, you know. I'm like, so I know what's going on, but what I'm saying is safety first. We have to keep everybody must feel safe. They must feel safe that no one can come on them and rob them. You know, we can't start having robberies at that place. Security has to be tight.
So let me build on that and build on the amount of challenge, because without question, from the start of doing this work, residents have named safety at Woodhill Homes as their priority issue. So you are on it. And again, Ms. Burns, thank you for your leadership on the safety working group. You all have your hands full because now we've got a whole new building to be thinking about. And I know you all have been talking about the building for months. But we have another really high priority, which is belonging and welcome and bridging. And so while we want to be safe and we want to keep the building safe and we want to be careful who comes in, we also, I don't think, want it to feel like a fortress.
Right. You don't want to feel like it's a jail.
It's a jail. And once you're in, and we're trying to bridge with our neighbors who are right across the street. And one of the beautiful things, and you all saw some of the pictures, the neighbors were able to hold their meeting in the building. And so we've already had neighbors who are like, instead of having to come all the way to Larchmere, they could walk out of their homes and have the street captains meeting in the building. They felt welcome in the building. But what if someone was late and walking up and someone else didn't know who they were? It was like, you don't belong here, you don't live here. And so we've got this tension between, yes, number one, safety, and I would be willing, as we start this, to say we got to keep that number one. But right behind that is a sense of openness to the community, a sense of welcome, a sense that the appropriate guests are welcome in the building. You're shaking your head. Go ahead. Let's have an argument.
They're going to fake you out and pretend that they belong and don't belong and come in there with an agenda. I'm the guy that knows that. I know who you are. I know basically everybody in Morris Black. I know what they do. You can't pull the wool over my eyes because I know you. I know your habits. I know everything. I know who's coming. I know the drug dealers. I know everything. So you ain't gonna be able to pull it down in Woodhill West, period.
I think this speaks to one of the challenges is we have not just outside people, but even Woodhill residents who are like, I know these residents and this is what they're going to do, which is their experience, but do we know? You know, they have to have the opportunity to show us something different.
Right. It's a new building, so they may have bring in a new attitude. Right. We want to keep this good and clean and safe and thrive. That's what everybody's attitude is right now. Everybody moved in.
And just speak to what I was saying in terms of wanting the building to feel open and welcoming. Would you agree to that? Or are you saying we can't even afford that?
Not yet. Not yet.
But at some point, would that be a goal?
A couple years from now, once everybody move in, we see everybody's pattern. Yeah, you can go there, but not now. You got the snakes waiting. I don't see them sit by the building. I don't see them walk through the building. I mean, walk through the grounds. I don't see guys pull up with hoodies on. I've seen all that, and I've been here only 2 weeks so far. I've seen all that. So we got to be real careful of the people who come in here with bad intentions.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. And just to be clear, we have about 20, 25 households in the building. We're going to 120.
Yeah.
So we're a sixth of the way, and we're seeing what we're seeing, right? So we are early days yet. So I think part of this is about what do we got to do in the early days, and then how do we not get stuck there, I guess is my thing. How do we keep a bigger vision of what we can be, but stay super realistic about what we have to do at this point. Let me invite you in.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to add to that. As a street captain, and there's another street captain up the hill, we've been kind of seeing things early on. So we're with you and support you, trying to nip a lot of things early on. So we're here with you.
Okay.
We can make sure we're together now.
Yeah,
and trying
definitely.
to reach out.
Definitely.
And we're working on, too, not knowing what I want to do as a street captain. I want to welcome Wood Station West, your staff, and my new neighbors. And I'm trying to plan something. I'm getting something together.
Okay.
So I haven't forgotten you about you. It's going to take some time, and maybe later on, further down the road, and I'll, of course, keep you posted on what can happen. I really want to do that. So we're here with you. We're small in number right now, but eventually we will expand, and hopefully we can thrive, and then we can combat all that's happening. We may not can eliminate it, but we can lessen it.
Well, what we can do, once they see that we're all together,
Right.
they ain't gonna mess with us.
Okay. Okay. I'm with you on that.
I like that. Community emerging right in front of your eyes.
Right,
Bridget.
right
You're
in front of your
seeing-
eyes.
You're seeing it here.
If we say, don't mess with Wood Hill West, we ain't going down there.
There you go. All right, let me ask one or two more questions, and I want to open up and see what questions you all might have in the audience. A personal question. How have you been personally growing, learning through this experience? What is something maybe you didn't know a year ago, a month ago, but you're learning now? Something personal. How are you learning and growing?
So as I stated earlier, like I'm a social work, I'm diehard social work. Like, you know, all the things social work, compassion, empathy, that is just what I bleed. And not everybody does. And that's okay. And I still have to advocate for what is right for the residents. And it's challenging and all the things. But it's okay, just the different perspectives of people. It doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. I've also learned that I am not as optimistic as I thought I was. A lot of days I come to work and I'm just like, oh my goodness, how is this going to happen? Mark challenges that often.
Yeah.
But it's a great learning experience. I learn every day on this job. No day is the same. Every day we're learning something different. And I hope that my colleagues are learning as well. So people in the development department who deal with just the brick and mortar, and that is their laser focus. When I come into a meeting, I'm hoping that when I'm saying, wait, what about the people, that they're taking that in and they're learning from that as well. But they do have a job to do. So trying to figure out a way that we can collaborate and they can get their job done and I can get, you know, what I need to get across for the people. You know, it's work. It's hard work.
Well, for me, my learning experience has been like a roller coaster. I've had lots of sidebars with Mark, texting and emails. And for me, it's been relearning a new normal for me. Learning what I can accept, what I can change, and what's the same, and the wisdom to know the difference is coming in play big time. So that's going to be a continuous thing as long as I'm going to be living in that home. So I have to see where it's going to go. So I hope it's going to stay on the positive, but I'm going to know I'm going to have some ups and downs, so just bear with me. And know in the beginning for me, the construction things got in the way. So it kind of blinded me in terms of getting into the celebratory mode. So that's kind of fading a little bit, but we got another construction coming. So let me breathe a little bit, get excited, yeah. Then I got to get back in it. But I hope as we move on with the new construction, as things have been learned from phase 1, they won't happen again in phase 3. And it could be a smoother process. Like I said, I got more neighbors with me. So I can say, hey, y'all could fight with me and say, you can't
Right
do
with
that
you.
over there.
Right
Okay.
with you.
So that helps a lot, that I have new neighbors and they can maybe be a part of that and understand. Then you get to experience and hear the sights, sounds, and smells of construction too.
Mr. Sheffy, how about you? Something you've learned?
What I've learned was the beautiful thing of how happy people are when they moving into something new. You should see the faces of the children and the grown-ups as they're moving in. And not only are they moving in, but they're making sure You got furniture. You're not laying on the floor. You can clean your house. They give you housing products. They give you everything you need to get started to survive. And the feeling and the beauty, I've never felt this in my life amongst people. And to be a part of it and to see it come alive and see the happiness that's on people's faces, priceless.
I just want to sit with that for a minute. I just want to sit with that. You learn in this business to sit with those moments because there's so many of the other, but that's what we're doing it for. That's what we're doing it for.
Right now, you got it. We got to keep it.
Yeah. Yep. I want to start. We have some folks, other Woodhill partners in the room. So I want to start with our Woodhill partners and give them an opportunity to share with you all because it's a real partnership. And I'm going to go all the way to the back. Miss Marilyn, thank you for being here again and for your service. Love to have you say a word.
I usually don't use the mic, guys, because I have a very powerful voice given to me by my creator. So since I have this microphone, first of all, let me start off with the positive thing. I hope this whole process will turn out for the residents successfully because the humanitarian part of all of this feels very close to my heart. I often talk about as whatever we do in this world, we need to feed each other the fruits of the Spirit. And that starts with love, joy, kindness, and everything. Some of the things I heard, I totally agree with. Some of these things I've heard, I think you need to go back and start and take a second look. Mr. Sheffy, you have been at Woodhill for only 14 years. Mr. Sheffy, I came to Woodhill homeless and have been there over 21 years. And the first thing I said when I stepped my foot on that property was, what can I do to serve this community? Because I came from Walton Hills to being homeless. I was a victim of a scam. I lived on the streets for a while. When I came there and saw how the people lived, my heart opened up and said, what can I do to serve? When I came there to serve, nobody stood with me but me. So, that being said, it takes a lot. They said more is black. Yes, you're right. I never denied where I would stand, but I got that same kind of reaction. I lost a friend that took me home there, and he talked to me so bad when he dropped me off, he never came back. I will say this about Woodhill Homes. It's not where you live, it's how you live. So when you don't have people to come together as people to help each other, they were comfortable in living in the hell that they were involved in instead of opening up that door that could lead them to a heaven. They wanted to stay stuck. Number two, there was nobody there to really help us. No services that really, so stigma society has put on these people have left them in that situation. And Carla, it made them feel that they had no better coming because they made them feel that they deserved that. If this had been red line since the 1930s, we were herded there like cattle. So people came there with trauma, things that they couldn't get out of. I listened to so many stories and I began to feel that I was a human garbage can for people's problems. But I could understand them because a lot of things they went through, I went through it. I'm very empathetic. So I understand. Miss Yvette. Let's talk about your neighborhood for a minute. By no fault of your own, things were going on in your neighborhood before the construction started. It was 2 mayor terms that was 16 years, and God knows only the stuff that was going on way before that. So the first question I asked you when you came as a panel person, why weren't you down there raising sand with City Hall? My response was, well, we called a few times. Listen, in situations as your neighborhood was in, and I've driven through there many times way before this construction, it should have been addressed. So just because this new building is coming in there, I understand the things that you are going through, but please, that's why I did the olive branch thing to invite residents from your area, your streets, Wamalik, Yeko, all of them. Nobody came but you and your parents. But I extended this olive branch just to avoid situations like that. That you could get to, guys could get to know the residents that were moving into your area, and the people from Woodhill would get to know their adjoining neighbors. So it's a lot of work to be done. It's a lot of things that's on the table, but let's try to attack the low-hanging fruit first. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Marilyn. Thank you. Sure. And then maybe Diane can go next. Yvette would like to respond.
Just a comment. I think it's a starting point. It's, I probably didn't start many years ago, but I'm starting right now. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Diane, would you like to add? I'm so appreciative of you being here.
It's hard coming back after Miss Marilyn. For me, well, first of all, I work in Ward 6. I work for Council President Griffin. So I'm in Fair Hill Partners office, and I deal with all the residents in Ward 6, which includes where everyone we're talking about live. For me, I live a little bit up the hill. I'm right in Larchmere. And I've been there 40 years. And so, and some of the people that I live with used to live in Morris Black back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And that's when it was all white. And then they moved up to Hill. And we have it's a nice neighborhood, where I'm at. Just a little difference of how each section lives. But for me, I've been on the working committee for what, year and a half? How long you've had it? My council president, it was his position, but with him being busy and doing different things, he has volunteered me to be part of it. So I've learned a lot, and I have a relative that lived in Morris Black as well. But I've learned that people are people. It doesn't matter, where we all live. We all have heartaches. We all have deaths in our families. We all have different situations that we go through. It's just a matter that some of us are able to have resources more than others to deal with it. For me too, I was Block Club president there, and I always invited people from Morris Black, from Buckeye, all the different neighborhoods, because Larchmere is considered they have a different attitude about Larchmere. So it's just trying to make everybody understand each other and accept each other. So that's where I'm at. When I'm on the committee, I enjoy listening to everybody's concerns, because a lot of us have been through those changes as well. So that's where I'm at. Wherever I can help, I'm on different committees. I've always, when Ms. Marilyn gave functions down there, I'm always in the community helping, doing different things. And that would be something for all of you to be able to come and experience dealing with the different residents. Like I said, they all have families. They love their families, but everybody has different situations going on.
Great. Thank you so much, Diane. Let's see what questions we have. Any questions from the audience?
I have one question. I just have one question. And my question is to you, LaCarla. How are you guys keeping on top of keeping in touch with the residents that haven't returned? As Mark said earlier, people change their phone numbers. We get loose. So is that tight knit now? Because that was one of my pet peeves when we had our little committee going. And how is that going with you guys?
It's going well. It is a challenge because of, people changing their numbers, like you said. But what we do is we've gone to door knocking, just going to the residents. They don't answer, we leave a letter. And we'll continue to do that until, they respond or the project is over. But it is our task that we try to keep in touch with all the residents, which is a little less than 450. And it is difficult because we have 5 service coordinators. So if you divide that by 5, you can see the caseload size. And so trying to, work with the residents who are engaged and still keep track of the residents who might have disengaged, who changed their number or whatnot is a heavy task. But we do our best. We do days once a month where we dedicate to just outreaching residents who we haven't been able to outreach in the last month. And that includes going to their different the different properties, different CMHA properties, or if they have a housing choice voucher, their house, knocking on the door, leaving a letter if they're not there. I can't tell you about a situation where we weren't able to get in touch with a resident I went with the service coordinator to go knock on her door, and she opened the door and she was completely disheveled. And her first words was, "I'm not doing well." And went into her unit, and she had the stove completely turned up. It was, I don't know how she was standing in that apartment. And that's a situation where we were able to intervene, get her some mental health support. We're still not able to contact her via phone. Anytime we want to talk to her, we have to go to the door. But when you're talking about the challenges, that's a challenge because that takes time, that takes resources. It is a lot. I think we were there for about 2 hours with just one resident in a day. But she needed it, and we had to do it, and we have to continue to do it to make sure that she has the opportunity to come back if she wants to, or just to make sure that she's stable. So it's definitely a difficult task, but
Can you say a word
somebody
about
has to do it. Oh, she has a phone. Yeah, she has a phone. We just can't reach her by.
Can you say a word about the network builder strategy?
Yeah, so our community engagement manager, Erica Jarvis, she's leading our network builders, which is going to be a group of residents, Wood Hill residents, who will form this network. They'll be responsible for reaching out to residents, keeping residents up to date on the project, checking in with residents. Hey, what's going on with you? If they find out that something is going on with a resident, they'll report it back to our team so that we can follow up. And just a way for residents to build their own community without us being so involved, because sometimes that just works better. They might feel more comfortable talking to a fellow resident or neighbor. They're going to have their first meeting, I think, next week. We have about 12 people, 12 neighbors who are interested in joining the network builders, and we're going to try to build that out even more. So looking forward to that opportunity to have, more neighbors connect on a one-on-one level. So yeah, there'll be training. They'll actually have training once a week for the first 6 weeks, I believe. So they'll be training in, trauma-informed training, confidentiality, just customer service. So yes, there is.
And Ms.
training
Marilyn, you'll be
involved.
glad to hear I've got 2 of those training sessions. One of them will be about the Choice Neighborhood Initiative, so they'll really understand what this all is a part of. And then the second one, I forget what I called it. I had a cool title. It's something like, why is being a network builder, the most amazing position you can have, or something like that. So we'll definitely have a training, because you're absolutely right? They need that capacity to play that role. Yes, please, in the back.
Do little social media.
Yes, we have a Facebook page. It's called the Wood Hill What's Happening Facebook page. So yes, that is a avenue that we try to use to engage with residents. Unfortunately, we haven't had that many residents follow the page. I think right now we're at like 30 residents who follow the page. But we try to mention that anytime we have events or engaging with residents, follow the Wood Hill What's Happening Facebook page. But I don't really know why residents are hesitant to follow it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's the hesitation, but we haven't had a large response of residents being willing to follow that page, but we do have it.
I think one thing that's changing now is with the new building, and Mr. Sheffy's been talking about that. Suddenly, after 2 years, we've got something very, very real. Folks moving in with all the excitement. So I think if we can be strategic about getting those photos up on the page, getting the information up on the page, right? Getting some videos up, and we actually have some videos with Mr. Sheffy talking about moving into the building. Get those on the
I
page.
need to see them videos.
Yeah. All right, I'll let you check them out first. They came out well, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're. One last question.
Yes, if we can squeeze it in, please.
I love listening to each of you and so much care and wisdom about life. 2 things I'm trying to understand. When did people first start moving in? You described so much about life in the building, and I'm wondering over how long the period.
Just 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's it.
So much you're seeing already and understanding and caring about. The other thing is, what is the meaning of mixed income? by proportion of the building? What's the goal of it, and what are the levels of what that means?
Yeah, it's a great question. So maybe we'll have to do a part two. We'll come back and do that whole mixed income thing. But for the quick answer, it varies in different cities and by different buildings. This particular building is 75% and 25%. So there's 120 units. 90 of them are for returning Wood Hill residents. So the vast majority, 75%, 25% are affordable housing. So I don't know if there'll be Mercedes-Benz, maybe. But these are units that are also meant to be affordable. They're funded through the federal low-income housing tax credit program. And so they're aimed for families who may not be at a public housing income level, but a moderate income level. That's correct. So in this particular building, but now in some of the other buildings to come in later phases, there will be a market rate component as well. Then it'll be a mix. Thank you. Great question.
That's wonderful. Let's thank Dr. Joseph and our panel for telling us about really this exciting and incredible work that's going on in our communities. Some of you may have individual questions for students who need to check in through Explore. We have Adam and Hannah in the back, and they can assist you with that if you need to do that as well. We remind you that next month's Power Diversity Lecture will be on April 19th. We will feature Sam Young, who is a young activist who really talks about issues of anti-racism and why combating anti-Asian hate has to be part of our endeavor to make sure that we can create more inclusive and embracing societies, and it will be part of our pre-AAPI month festivities. So thank you all. Finish off the food if you didn't get a chance to, and thank you for coming.